Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Thursday night with General Prabdeep Singh talking about Ukraine is an exciting night. Always, sir. Good evening. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adi. It's good to be back. Good to talk of Ukraine as always. Ukraine interests the entire world, and of course, it interests all our viewers. What's happening in Ukraine is no interesting incident has happened of late, but then there are talks of likelihood of interesting incidents going to take place. A little bit about the counteroffensive. The counteroffensive is on, and actually slowly it's making a little headway as far as the Ukrainians are concerned, and they're talking about it. uh, some of them made statements. The deputy defense minister, she makes a statement saying that the main offensive is yet to come. These are all probing attacks. uh, well, that's got to be taken with a pinch of salt,
You don't lose
because
20,000 people, sir.
yeah, they got about 20,000 odd. Yeah, then the total area that they have in the last since the 4th of June, right? They've taken about 158 square kilometers. And 158 square kilometers is actually peanuts when you look at the entire spectrum. And the fighting is, there are 7 pockets where the fighting is taking place, 4 in the east and 3 in the south. So there are efforts by the Ukrainians, because they got to show, because before this meet which is taking place in Vilnius, that they are very serious about it, and they are going to they have to prove a point. So that's where it stands. Uh, you know, these are skirmishes taking place, but whatever said and done, they have not been able. The Ukrainian army has not been able to breach the even the first year to the degree that they should have. And one thing very sad that appears here is the infantry is getting killed, the equipment. And infantry is what? Infantry is human beings, and the manpower which is getting lost. Uh, uh, you know, it's very sad. Why I say sad is, who's getting killed? It's the Ukrainians who are getting killed. At the scale of a ratio of about 8 is to 1, 10 is to 1. I mean, take it whichever way. To For one Russian soldier, it's about 8 to maybe 10 Ukrainians. So that is the kind of a ratio that we are seeing, because it's an attrition war. Once the Ukrainians are short of RT, they're short. They do not have any air working for them, and it's the Russians who are kind of letting them have it. So equipment. You see the amount of equipment which has been poured in by the West.
Mhm.
Uh, when you get something in free, you really don't care about it.
Yeah.
When something comes easy to you, it loses its value. So the point I'm trying to make here is that whatever pieces of equipment, the Russians claimed that about 2,500 pieces of equipment have been destroyed so far, and all this has been made available free of cost to Ukrainians. So to them it really doesn't pinch. It really doesn't matter, because they know uh, they're going to get some more. Something is coming, more and more are coming, and you have the president going begging with a begging ball, and he had the audacity. I would say it is audacity to have even stated that I know exactly how much of equipment is lying with each country. So that is why I'm asking for it from them. It's so naive and it's so stupid on his part to do so. And he's assuming that the entire world is at his feet and begging at him that to keep the Russians at bay, don't let them come next to us, we'll support you to the end, otherwise Russians will gobble us, and this kind of a thing. No country worth its salt is going to give Ukraine the best of its equipment in the numbers that it should be given. they will keep the first line equipment with them, because tomorrow, if an eventuality arises, they ought to be having that to save their own skin and to fight
Indeed.
for their armed forces. If they are not committing manpower, and if they can't commit manpower, you mean to say they'll give away all the equipment and just hold on to the manpower? So it was a very very naive kind of a statement made by the president of Ukraine. Anyway, nonetheless, so that's as far as the battle is concerned. And one heartening or two three corroborations which took place, or whether the Ukrainians acted or the Russians acted or whatever happened. What we, a couple of talks back, two, three talks back, we talked of when the mutiny took place, and or the, not the mutiny, I would say, the chaos that took place in Russia. Everybody was saying that, the Wagner chief Prigozhin was in Belarus. We also did say so at the first, and then of course I did clarify that this gentleman is in St. Petersburg. And if you recollect, we spoke about the aircraft having gone to tracking the aircraft, and the aircraft had taken him to St. Petersburg. And today, lo and behold, there's a statement made by Lukashenko saying that he's not in Belarus, he's in St. Petersburg, and that's where it is. So we are not doing too bad. The other thing which I found interesting in the last week, between the last episode and today, is that I had or we had discussed that an attack from Belarus towards Kiev is quite a possibility and a likelihood. And what did we see after 2 days? The Ukrainians deploying troops on the Belarus and Ukraine border. So, my friend, whosoever is listening in, and thanks, I must thank him for at least paying heed and taking action on whatever we speak, because till such time we had spoken about it, nothing had actually happened on that front.
And
So
today, the American intelligence, sorry to interrupt, so the American intelligence today is murmuring that this was all a game. And
yeah,
they
so we
heard it,
all
I think, first on Deaf Talks, right?
so we always said it is a game, and the so this is where it stands. And of course, the major news is what is making waves now is the issue about the Zaporihzhia nuclear power plant, and that is going to get attacked, and there are counter claims and counter allegations as to what's going to happen. We'll discuss about it as we go along. Now, it is the 71st week since the war is, prolonging. It is the 479th day, 497th day, and soon
97.
it's going to be 3 days time. It's going to be 500 days since this battle is going on. Uh, well, doesn't seem to be ending, and let's see where it leads to, and what is the prognosis. Not on this channel, but uh, on another channel, long time back, the war had just about started, and this particular channel, which I had spoken about it, and the headlines, which my friend who was the host, he put across that General Behel predicts that Ukraine will be split into two. And I still stand by that, and I go by the theory that the aim is to split Ukraine, and Ukraine will be split, and that is the end, result of this war. We can talk a little about that as we go along. So, counteroffensive not making any gains. Zaporozhia nuclear plant, a big debate on. Will Ukraine be allowed anywhere near the NATO conference? Is doubtful. And the CIA has come up. once said that this was a kind of a that they've been fooled, and they are still being fooled. And they really, it's a very candid statement. If you read the article in the Newsweek, which says that even today, both the Ukrainians and the Russians are most unpredictable, and we really do not know as to where this war is headed. And
Hmm.
the CIA says that our main aim is to ensure that the things don't go out of control. I mean, that is what they claim to be. So we can talk about as we go along. Yeah.
So, first question is, now this is also another interesting thing. The close of the last show, we had said that Zaporozhzhia will come into picture, and Zaporozhzhia will, this they'll build a narrative on Zaporozhzhia, and this is something that we closed the show with last time. Excuse me. And sure enough, Zaporozhia. I mean,
Yeah.
why
And that,
play with nuclear these things? Why? Why? This is getting a little, and the West seems to be not supporting it openly, but allowing it.
no, I would not say that the West is supporting it or allowing it. Uh, this is, you know, firstly, we closed with Zaporozhia and we said, we'll discuss it next time. And I think rightly so, we didn't take the topic at that particular time last week because the developments which have taken place are now.
No.
Uh, Now, let's examine this. Zaporozhia is the largest nuclear power plant in the entire of Europe. There are 12 reactors. I mean, this is one place, there are 12 reactors concentrated in one location, which are supplying power to to Europe as well. It's not only just Ukraine. Now, what is happening? Why did the Russians in the first instance go and kind of grab it? After all, Ukraine was part of the USSR, and in the Soviet regime they knew exactly as to what was happening there, and Ukraine had nuclear weapons deployed all across, which were you know sent back to Russia. The point I'm trying to make is that as far as the nuclear entire structures are concerned, they were in place way back. The safety aspects were already built into it, and it is not that a nuclear plant is standalone and nuclear weapons were not deployed. The entire nuclear architecture, in my opinion, during the Soviet regime would have been absolutely foolproof and in
Hmm.
place. That's one. Two. So the Russians got hold of it. Once the Russians got hold of it, the Ukrainians cried horse. And the IAEA came into picture and said it should be declared as a neutral zone, and it should, and that Russia should withdraw its troops. I mean, who who in their normal senses would withdraw troops once you have captured? So what the Russians have is they're letting the plant run. Today, of course, it's closed because of
They've
it's not
disconnected it.
supplying electricity. Some bit of it has been renewed now, but they have assumed control and they are maintaining strict vigil and strict control over all the aspects of the nuclear plant, and rightly so. So that's one aspect. No ways, of course there has been bombing around it, but this plant has not been targeted and will not be targeted because as a responsible nation, I'm sure Russia, after all, if there is a nuclear calamity or a radiation leak or whatever it takes place, it doesn't just affect the Ukrainians, it affects the soldiers on ground. It
Yeah.
affects the people, it affects the common man, it affects the neighboring countries. So it affects Belarus, it affects Crimea. So all that happens. So nobody in this sane, senses is going to allow this or even think about it. Now, why is so much of hoo-ha about it? Well, Ukraine created this hoo-ha.
Hmm.
The IAEA came, the inspectors came. They, whenever they have come, they've been allowed access. It's not that they have not been allowed access. The boss of the IAEA has clearly said that as of now, we have no, you know, inputs or anything that we may suspect that something is going to happen. But friend Zelensky has gone up in the air, and I mean, I found it rather funny. He has come up on social media and he himself has announced that the Russians have, they have found through satellite images that there are certain structures which have come about on top of these, and they are presumably explosives. IA, IAEA, under whom inspections have been permitted, says nothing of that sort is there, or we are very sure that it is safe. Now, Russia also turned around and says that look, as far as we are concerned, it's absolutely safe, and there are no plans to do whatever the Ukrainians are alleging. Now, what are the Ukrainians alleging? It's hilarious, actually. He says they have put explosives on top of the roofs, and to simulate that this plant has been shelled by artillery by Ukraine. Now, Ukrainians are saying this, that to simulate an attack by the Ukrainians, they have put explosives on top, and the explosive will be let loose, and it will be told by the Russians that it is the Ukrainians who have shelled it. I mean, is this a child's game? I mean, the very petty kind of street politics is what I may just term this as. You, it's actually ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the whole thing is, Ukrainians, we have intelligence from many countries and many sources. And when you ask proof, there are people who have questioned proof. They said, no, no, we cannot provide. It's intelligence, it's secret, no proof can be provided. So the official agency says no suspicion, nothing of, we do not suspect anything. The Russians say that look, we have no intention to do it. Ukrainian says the Russians are going to do it, and they're going to try and put the blame on us. So this is the game that is going on, which is quite ridiculous. I also read that these particular plants, the nuclear reactors or wherever they are constructed, I'm no nuclear expert, and I really do not have much, in-depth knowledge. I can talk as a generic statement that I can make is that when a nuclear reactor is made, it's protected against earthquakes, it's protected against blasts, it's protected against, hell of a lot. And all safety aspects are already built in. They say that even if it is, an artificial lands and a bomb lands on it, or this, mother of all bombs is a different story. But if a bomb, 500 kg bomb also lands up on it, not much effect is going to take place. There will be perhaps a radiation leak, which may occur. So the Ukrainians have already started practicing, have already started announcing to the world, or to the people around, that in case of a radiation leak, these are the steps you have to take. And they're thinking of evacuating 300,000 people. They're drawing up plans.
How far will you go for a narrative, sir?
Now, Adi, the narrative, I suspect a bigger plan here and a bigger theory. I may be totally wrong, but I just want to. I think I spoke about it last time, and my ridiculous theory. I mean, just put it, a far-fetched theory is, uh, how do you stop the Ukraine war?
Hmm.
Have peace, have peace talks. But I'm Zelensky. I have already made up my mind, and I'm a commitment to the world in public. I I will not talk of peace until unless Russia, you know, surrenders all my territory. It surrenders Crimea. It goes back towards borders, so-called borders. And once the entire of Ukraine has been vacated, I will talk peace. If these are the terms, the 10-point peace plan of Zelensky. So you have the Chinese talking about, they don't talk of Russia moving out. They talk of a peace plan. Ideally, a peace plan works. The first step to that, we've spoken earlier, is ceasefire. You stop fighting. Okay, today onwards, you stop fighting. Once you stop fighting, then you have a ceasefire commission in place. A committee
Hmm.
takes it down and decides what is to be done. And what it is mutually decided, okay, you go back to your area, I'll go back to my area, and this is it. Either the UN steps in, peacekeeping force steps in, or it may not step in, but at least you come on to a mutual decision, and then
Versus
thereafter
what?
you negotiate, and then you, whatever buffer zone, whatever you want to create, whatever conditions. But that kind of a situation doesn't seem to, you know, take place. It's not going to happen because of obstinacy.
Hmm.
Because of obstinacy on the part of President Zelensky, also on the part of the West, whose total aim is to weaken Russia, bring down Russia down to the knees. Unfortunately, they are unable to achieve that particular aim. That's not happening as the war is progressing. That is not happening as of today, right? Let's face facts. So, how do you stop the war? How did Second World War get stopped? Is to create a nuclear. I mean, it was again the Americans who let the bombs in, right? The the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima was done by the United States, and that was to teach the Japs a lesson, whatever it is, to bring an end to the war, and all that happened.
Hmm.
So now, if you create, I'm Zelensky, I'm obstinate, I've made statements. I'm the West, I've made statements. Nothing like we fight in the last Ukrainian. So how do you end the war? What phase do you have to end the war? To- So this narrative, this building up all this while to say that Zaporozhzhia, there's going to be a radiation leak. How do you know? Is it planned? So apparently, in my mind, it is planned. Here, worse come worse, we will do this. And this is the only way to end this war and put the blame on Russia. And once you put the blame on Russia, you have all the sanctions and you have all that, the world gets after your blood and things like that. And that is how you weaken Russia at the end, by putting the blame on Russia. So this is I'm trying to support it with the facts that you're talking about evacuation, you're practicing, uh, you know, you are distributing masks, you are distributing all that, and you're creating that, shaping the battlefield, so to say,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shaping the narrative, so to say, that yaar, ye hone wala hai, this is going to happen. And the moment this happens, either way, whether it's the Russians who do it or the Ukrainians trigger it, the fact of the matter is the world will cry hoarse and the war will come to a stop. Naturally. So this is, in my opinion, of the last face saving kind of an action that may be triggered. And if this is the way they are going to play the game, I think it's a very sad state of affairs. Something which can be done by just throwing in the towel and saying enough is enough. Uh, this thing could just end with one statement. Okay, enough is enough. We will talk. Whatever peace plan has to be put forth, we will talk about it. But I think the West is not prepared uh, till such time they've actually sacrificed the entire menfolk of Ukraine. That's my read on this. Yeah.
There are these terrible videos coming out of battlefield losses of Ukraine, sir. And one of the things that you're seeing, I've seen these videos for the past 18 months. What you're seeing now is it's heartbreaking when you're seeing it, and there are also few fractions now talking about that. This thing has to finish. As a matter of fact, there's that Vice documentary, and I didn't expect it to come out of Vice, of all the things, Vice News, where they actually aired out a Ukrainian soldier saying that I don't know what the plan of the government is probably just eradicating the entire population of army age. That
Yeah,
was
that's
a profound statement, sir.
no. That's haven't you seen those videos where that uh, you know uh, by force they are picking up people?
Yeah.
I mean, how can you just do that? This is sad. Picking up people, breaking into houses where mothers are trying to shield their sons and not allowing them to go, and now they're getting onto the elderly lot, and things like that. I think it's a very sad state of affairs in Ukraine. And the entire menfolk, the male population of Ukraine, I don't know how many, has all kind of been sacrificed. It is only the women folk who's out there as refugees or the elderly who've gone across. I mean, 8 million people already out of the country. So population is, and you think they're going to come back? I'm so sorry, they're not going to come back. They would have found better pastures on the other side,
Yeah.
elsewhere, wherever they are. They're not going to get back.
They're getting more money in Europe as
Yeah,
handouts as they used to earn in Ukraine. So why would they come back?
great. So they're not going to come back. So who's going to come back? Only those countries which have interests, and they will come and try come for the agriculture products, and they will buy. They've already bought land, and you know, I'm told China has a vast
6% of, yeah.
yeah. So they bought land already, agriculture land. Then they're talking about mining, and they're talking about everything that they can take out of that country. So it's not a very healthy situation as far as Ukraine is concerned, and
Let's
being sacrificed. That's all.
let's talk about the West. This NATO summit in Vilnius. Probably, I think our next session will be somewhere around that. Just post that. Actually, we'll be able to do a post damage analysis, if I may. But this next session in Vilnius, this seems a little odd because you have the Prime Minister of Estonia, a beautiful young lady, comes out. No, I think the Foreign Minister of Estonia, you know, comes out, gives a press conference, very nice, very this thing, and suddenly she says, "We've got a big gift for Ukraine" in the conference. There are
Yes.
clear messages coming out of the White House saying there is no chance of Ukraine even being invited from there.
So that's
Now,
what.
what is this?
I also found contradictory kind of statements coming up. A statement saying nowhere near not invited,
Mhm.
and I you know, understanding what protocol is all about in the international diplomatic circles, uh, he's not going to be invited. He's not going to be invited into the meeting per se to attend. He may be present around, He may be around at that particular time, but definitely not inside the meeting, right? And I mean, look at the cheek. He says, until unless I am permitted inside, I am not going to attend and things like that. And he's wanting security. NATO has to provide him a guarantee. Now, that kind of a security guarantee can be provided outside the preview of NATO to say, okay, we are supplying you weapons and we will continue to support you as long as we can, as long as required. And that's all that the statement can be at the end of it.
Do you think it's going to be lip service?
It's not lip service. It's, if you think that he's going to be a part of NATO, not happening. Security guarantee, the security guarantee is what? We will provide you with wherewithal to the extent possible. End of story. We will provide you intelligence, which is already being provided, wherewithal already being provided. We will rebuild the country once it's over. But when is it going to be over? And you think Hungary and Turkey and all, they're going to allow it to happen? No ways. Germany, no ways. So there is a second thought which is going on all over the world amongst the NATO countries and the EU countries and saying, thank you very much, we've had enough of you. I mean, we are not going to sacrifice our people, our economies, just to support a war which is going nowhere. As I've stated earlier in one of the talks, and maybe before that also, yeah, I'll support you. I will support you till the time you're going to produce results, right? I will coach you. I will coach you. I will give you a pat on the back as long as you're producing results. I mean, if you're a professional soccer player, if you're a professional footballer, trust you me, you are only going to be there as long as you are, playing a team game and you're contributing toward the game.
Yep.
If you're not going to contribute, thank you very much. I'll, I'll help you. I'll ignore you. I'll watch you once. I'll see you second time, third time. I'm so sorry you're not there. So this is precisely what's going to happen. So the security guarantee is going to be lip service. It's going to be limited to we will provide you the wherewithal as long as feasible to the extent we can. B, we will provide you with intelligence. C, we will help you in the infrastructure development of your country as and when the situation arises. That's it. उसके बाद उसके अलावा क्या करेगा?
Just to actually add to what you're saying, what you're saying makes a lot of sense when you hear Zelensky's urging to the Ukrainian military that gain some success before the summit at least.
Yeah, so that I get something out of them. Not happening, no. It's kind of and the beauty of the NATO is that it works in consensus. All 31 countries have to say yes. Only then that will happen. Maybe it's Sweden which may benefit as a part of this entire summit, wherein Turkey, of course, has been requested to consider, and so has Hungary been asked to consider, and maybe they relent. That's about it. And if they do, maybe it's the entry of the Swedes into NATO, and you have a 32nd country, period. But as far as Ukraine is concerned, we know and they say, until unless there's peace, until unless you meet conditions, you're not going to be part of NATO. So the conditions are not right. The economy is not right. You're at war. Because the moment you're at war and you're a part, you cannot be at war and
Join a military
join
alliance.
NATO. So this kind of a thing, that's what I expect out of this, and nothing much. as I
Let's
see it.
talk about the Russians, sir. Surovikin incidentally is missing. Nobody's heard or seen of him. But the Russian generals are like that. They don't normally come out. So not much can be said on that aspect of it. But he's still missing. Uh, the armies, whatever said and done, there are now murmurs coming out of Russia. And this is something I've been reading about with all these bloggers and stuff, that now they are saying, yeah, enough. We need to start our engines and kind of move. Till how long will we play this soft game? So there is a certain sense of, I won't call it desperation, but I'd call it anguish within certain segments of the Russians, that यार अब बहुत हो गया, इसको खत्म करो. We've gone at it for too long. These guys have humiliated us enough, embarrassed us enough. Now it's time to put an end to this story. How would you kind of see this in terms of the pressure which will build up on Putin sometime or the other? Looking at the factors, and allow me another 10 seconds, that this was the same story in Syria when the Battle of Raqqa was happening, and the generals kept telling him to move fast, and he didn't. And then the counterattack from the ISIS guys came. They had to move back and literally, leave their positions in Raqqa. And then, of course, he went in and leveled the city. That's another story altogether. But there was those voices that came out against him, and that's not very far back, sir.
Yeah. So, these kind of voices will always be there in any country when a country is at war. All right. Now, these kind of voices will come from people who are not looking at the larger picture, who are looking at the who are looking at the short term part of it.
Sir,
Whereas governments don't work like that. You have you have your at the strategic level, you have certain aims and ambitions for your nation, right? You are thinking big, you're looking 2050. You're not looking 2025, you're looking at 2050.
true.
So uh, when you look at the larger picture, the moment, if I mean, there are three players here. You got the West, you got Ukraine, and you got Russia, right? They're the three players in this entire battle. Ukraine is a non-entity. Ukraine is cannon fodder. Ukraine is the playing field. Ukraine is the team, right? Which is being owned by somebody else. Actually, the EU is also just being played around by the United States. So, but we'll consider them together.
Sir,
Now, anybody who relents,
it's done.
anybody who throws in the towel today has lost it for the next
Yeah, yeah, finished.
couple of decades. You understand? Will the West put an end to it? No. Will Ukraine do it? Ukraine will
Probably.
doesn't know what's happening. Will Russia do it? No.
Oh,
So these things, it is not today 2025. It's 2050 and beyond maybe. Whether Putin stays, Putin goes, Putin dies, Putin is slaughtered, Putin is what happens to him, Zelensky lives, doesn't live, Biden lives, doesn't live. These individuals are immaterial.
hmm.
It's the nation which is at stake. It's the nation state and the dynamics involved in it.
Well, that's very important because I guess the Ukrainians need to, and the Westerners need to hear you saying that because, oh, Putin, 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 Putin. I mean,
No, they're wrong. It is not the individual. Of course, an individual, the leader is there, but the leader, a strong leader, is backed by a strong strategic sense or a strategic outlook. and he's thinking big for his own people. That's why he's the leader, right? He's not thinking himself. He may go tomorrow. He may live another 20 years. He may even power for another year or two. He's not thinking about himself. It's not Putin. It is Russia or it is the West. So all those people who have narrow outlook, or you're looking short term, are the ones who say, yeah, thank you very much, let's put an end to it, and let's have peace.
Okay,
So you
okay.
do what you want. Strategic aims have to be met. If strategic aims today are not met by Russia, Russia will be trampled upon for the next decades, 3 4 decades, until unless some gentleman rises up from somewhere and is as strong. Same thing is applicable to the West. If it buckles down today, if it buckles down today, you imagine if the United States buckles, what is China going to do? What is China going to do? What is China looking at? China is also looking at this as to what is the United States capable of hanging on till when? How do they operate? How are they doing it? Everything is under scrutiny. Trust you me, because th- that's how you study each other, and that's how bigger games are played.
Yeah.
And the big game rivalry is not between Russia and United States; it's China and United States. You weaken Russia to an extent that you finish it, and it becomes no threat at all, and then you're only left with China and the US. That's the whole game. Because if Russia and China combine together, which they are now, courtesy Ukraine, they are a major force in being. Why do you think the Japanese are worried? Why do you think the Australians are worried? Why is that AUKUS
Everyone is
taking the
worried.
quad
Absolutely.
coming about? Understood. So all these alliances, etc., are taking place, keeping uh, a very far, outlook towards the geostrategic domain. So it's not going to happen. The war is not going to end. The only way it can end is what I told you earlier.
Something major. Sir,
Something.
let's look at another aspect of this war, which is now there are voices which are emerging from within the West. You've got RFK Jr., which is coming out and talking very openly about the war. There is, of course, Donald Trump, who's on fire, literally, I must say. I don't see the Democrats doing any sort of rallies and stuff. Trump is at it. He's on fire right now. And he's talking about everything from Hunter Biden to Zelensky. I mean, it's quite a heavy thing, and he's talking about the money laundering and this and that. So the political environment in the US is going to change. And one thing about the politics in the US is that the continuum kind of breaks, and especially with the polarized election that they had last time. I think there is going to be turmoil. How will it affect the Ukraine war, sir? Because this politics is going to be
Again, interesting. Whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump, it don't matter. We just spoke about it. It's the nation.
the deep
It's
state.
it's the deep state. It's the national interest or interest of that coterie which exists within the government or within uh, which actually moves nations.
People like Victoria Nuland who've been there for what? Four presidents.
So these are the kind of people who actually uh, what do you call are the driving force behind. Politicians, remember, do not matter. It's never about politics. It's about the nation. There is a direction which a nation has to take. So you will have Trump coming in or Kennedy Jr. coming in, and the tone, my friend, will remain the same. They will try and adjust, but then again revert back to the original strategy of, you know, pushing the war. Because somebody from the CIA would give them a fantastic briefing, and then they will brief them as to this is how the course of the battle has to take place, and this is why we have to do this, and they'll nod their head and say no, 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 but do this. Why not do this, and why not do that? So all that statements coming out of Trump being on fire, whether it's whichever way he's on fire from, uh, the end result is going to be once he comes into power, the tone will change. All these are rhetorics to come into power. Once you are in power, your thinking changes. You have to go by what is happening.
Hmm.
That's what I'm saying.
The you brought about a very interesting point, but sir, at some point of time, this game has to flop because we know it's on thin ice. And this is, guys, this is my last question. After this, we'll get into your questions. So please don't forget to like. Yeah, come on, yeah, 60 likes. That's not fair. We need to get some more likes into the game. Uh, my last question to you, sir, is at some point of time, this thing somebody will have to draw a red line. Now, the question is, will it be somebody in America or will it be somebody in Europe, namely Germany?
You see this red line that we're talking about, or draw a line to say that thank you very much, enough is enough. That will happen based on what Russia wants.
Aha.
End of story. It's got nothing to do with the Europeans. It's got nothing to do with the West. It's got everything to achieving one's war aims and more than what the war aims are, and to make sure that adequate territory is there and Ukraine is split till such time that happens. Either you stop him, have the ability, have the wherewithal, have the provide the wherewithal, and do what you want and stop him where he is. Today, in my opinion, Russia has been offended much beyond its tolerance limit.
Too many
And
times.
if Russia today loses this opportunity of maintaining its standing in society, if I may just say so, if it loses this today, it will never be able to regain it. So Russia's strategic aims, again I repeat, all the four oblasts which they have already done, coming on to Odessa, control of the Black Sea, and if possible, maximum territory right up to the river line, and if possible, the capital. So that is the aim, and that should be the aim. If that is not the aim, then I'm afraid they're fighting a battle which is not worth fighting. If I were Russia, I would not stop anything short of this. If I were the West, I would put, if I wanted to stop it, if I were sane enough, I would want to broker a peace today so that Russia doesn't go beyond this already captured areas. If Ukraine had the power, if Ukraine had the entire wherewithal, and if Ukraine can still stop the Russians, it's a different story. But that doesn't seem to be happening.
They've squandered themselves, sir.
They wasted. I told you, no, all has come free. They
Yeah.
haven't paid for it.
They've
They don't know
squandered
the
themselves.
value. They don't know the value, right? Billions of dollars are like millions, right? too much of money has been made, too much of money has been pumped in, too much of weapons have leaked out, and things like that. So things are murky. Europe is in deep shit. We've seen what's happening in France,
Oof.
and it may just spread over in other countries, and
Yeah,
it may have a ripple effect elsewhere. And if that ripple effect takes place, it's going to be in a very sorry state of affairs.
yeah, absolutely. So I agree. There's just no
And
question.
when Europe is boiling or is in chaos, and the attention of the world is diverted, of Europe is diverted in controlling its own nations, trust you me, it's advantage Russia.
Yep.
So that's how it stands today. Either the NATO gets involved in the war and tries to stop Russia and throws them out, not happening, and that amounts to a world war. If Ukraine can do it, well, do it. But Russia is not going to stop now. And if I were in their situation, I would not stop either.
I won't stop either. Absolutely. You've been embarrassed way too many times. You
Yeah,
go
and
back.
not that I'm totally exhausted.
Yeah, but enough and more left.
Yeah, maybe 40% down, but 60% still exists.
And he's producing, sir. Have you seen the shell production reports that are coming out of Cypri? Not out of Russia, out of
So
Cypri.
that's how it is. So
Two
that's
million
that's where
shells.
it is. So the war will end at the time when Russia decides to do so, in the present circumstances, until unless they change.
So
That's my take.
let's get into your question, guys. So before I do, like, subscribe, push the bell icon. I see some new names here, so I hope all of you guys subscribe and follow the channel. We do the Ukraine discussion every Thursday, so you can actually sync your watches to that, so that we can actually discuss this very interesting war which is happening around. Although this week has been rather slow, but the predictions that are made on this channel by General Sir have been coming eerily true. And normally, what happens is, and I'm just going to let this little secret out, that post we do the show, I'm actually telling General Sir for the next 2 days, sir, ये भी हो गया, sir, ये भी हो गया, and we discuss this कि ये सब चीजें हो रही हैं. This is becoming a very interesting scenario, reaching a point of no return and reaching a point of confluence, if I may. So please do. Uh, so
One point before we get on taking questions,
yeah.
uh, post our last talk and the importance we gave to the coming in from Belarus, and now what has happened is Ukraine has diverted some bit of its troops for the defense on that particular theater, right? Now, war, where did those troops come in from? Obviously, not from the front line. So they were a part of the offensive forces which they were holding on, and they would have got deployed now towards Belarus. So again, dissipation of forces have taken place, and I do not know what is the weight of the offensive which is supposedly supposed to come.
Mhm.
What is it going to be? So that's a point I thought I'll make before I forget.
That's, I think, a point of discussion. We can probably look at it in the next time because the ground is dry, absolutely dry, and if the Ukrainians don't move, I think somebody's tanks are going to get switched on very soon. So let's see where it happens. Guys, like, subscribe. You can contribute to the Dev Talks efforts with the QR code up there, or send us a super sticker or super chat. Thanks, Alakshendra, for your contribution. He says, thanks to the general, we are finally getting the truer picture of the conflict. YouTube is filled with partisan coverage. My pranams and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Tripathi. Thank you very much.
So, I mean, this is an interesting comment by John. He says, I believe Prigozhin had a Rambo moment and a Colonel Trotman had to talk him out of it.
Yeah, yeah, why not? I mean, these, John, I agree with you. What happens? These crazy guys, they come up with, they always do something crazy to remain in prominence. So he had that Rambo moment. He he comes up once in a while and shoots his mouth off. He, I doubt if he can shoot straight because after all he's a chef. But he definitely can shoot his mouth off, and that's how it is. Let's see what he's up to now. From St. Petersburg. If I were there, I've already put my forces in. I would have certain elements which have gone into what do you call Belarus.
Belarus.
I would concentrate. Majority portion is St. Petersburg. Uh, the Ukrainian forces have moved to the border of Belarus. What about this particular border? So it's an interesting situation. Kiev is going to get trapped from both ends. Yeah.
Borat, interesting name. US congressmen have been making statements that an attack on the nuclear power plant would be considered as an attack on NATO. I think this is Lindsey Graham and Max Blumenthal. What if the US bombs it like they sabotage the Nord Stream gas pipeline?
A good one, Bharat. I won't be surprised, but trust you me, they're not going to do. This is something. This is something uh, maybe beyond their pay grade, if I may just say so. Because if you do something like this, it's the retaliation of this is going to be very very heavy. It's not going
Yeah.
to be taken very lightly, and by the world once found out. After all, Nord Stream also, the truth is known. So the retaliation of this could be very, very severe. And if something like this happens, Uncle Putin's not going to be keeping quiet.
Well, that'll be the end of YouTube and Thursday shows. That's all I can
Yes,
say.
it's not going to be taken very lightly. Trust you me. And I, in my humble opinion, do not feel that anybody would, come into such come down so low as to trigger this kind of a thing.
Yeah. Not with nuclear. I mean, I am pretty surprised myself that the Western media is being led to, and I'm being very, 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 very careful when I say, and I mean what I say, the Western media is being led to carry out this whole propaganda with regards to this nuclear thing. I don't think this should be brought in. It's very immature, if I may say that.
Absolutely immature. And this, and I told you the purpose, the very purpose of this, whether a new dimension has been brought about, whether it is just to trigger another larger scale conflict, quite possible. But yeah, if the Ukrainians are planning this kind of a narrative, it could be backed by the United States. All
Yeah,
this,
there are those factions within the country. I
yeah.
don't deny that. So,
So if all
I
this
mean,
is getting orchestrated, if the narrative is getting built up that the Russians are going to do this and Russians are going to do that, trust you me, has to be some guidance or some stage management which is taking place, and perhaps coming to this kind of a situation.
true. I mean, you
Thankfully,
still have
thankfully,
you
India is very far away from Ukraine.
yeah, you still have people like Victoria Noodle still there, sir. I mean, I actually saw this documentary, not documentary, it's an interview of hers of I think it's PBS News Hour. It's an hour long talk where she's talked about Putin. It's amazing the kind of spins these guys give her. She has spun the entire end of the Cold War as if the US were victims of it. And I was like, how can they even keep a straight face? You won the
Uh,
Cold War. Yeah? Come on.
I unfortunately, I feel sad that you have people like this who are letting down the image of a nation. Let's get it right. I mean, uh, as far as I'm concerned, we are friends with the United States, we're friends with the Russians, we're friends with Ukraine, we're friends with everybody. But let's not do something, and let's not consider the world being stupid.
Yeah.
or being so naive that they do not understand. Gone are the days in the colonial past that whatever you said was taken as gospel truth. I'm so
Hmm.
sorry. It's not the state today. Uh, uh, People understand, whether
Yeah.
it's Africa, whether it's India, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Malaysia. Everybody understands today. Uh, is pretty well educated and understands the nuances. So when somebody senior enough in politics or in diplomacy makes uh, or makes statements like this, it's contrary to what they should, because they're letting down the image of their own nation, and that's sad.
Really
And
sad. I mean,
yeah, and you're talking so loosely about people and loosely about nuclear weapons, and you're not even concerned about the amount of destruction that has taken place, or you're not even concerned at the amount of lives that have been lost. That you're not even concerned about the displacement which has taken place. You're only concerned as to how much of money you want to provide and how much of business would come about at the end of the war to
and
reconstruct.
apart from that, the misguided visceral hatred to Russia, which is something I have not been able to understand.
I think it's unwarranted. In my opinion, it's unwarranted. Uh, imagine, imagine an Europe, after Russia's Eurasia and things like that. It's a continuation of the same continent. If they were all together and they were trading peacefully and they were living together, and if your EU had got extended, and the entire thing uh, was happening peacefully, trade and education and scientific research and all that took place, we would all be so progressive. The amount of billions spent, had that been contributed towards the health, towards poverty, just imagine you would do so much of contribution. What are you contributing for? Destruction, killing people. I mean, what kind of an age are we living in? And
Yeah, and
unfortunately, the United Nations has become defunct.
for me, the biggest moments, and I'll just say this, was Biden actually approving the F-16 sales standing in Hiroshima. I
Yeah.
said, yeah, I mean, you guys, I can't say anything further. You killed 70,000 people there. And now you stand there and say, okay, kill another few more.
No, no, there's no human part fit involved here. It's all money.
I mean, I saw that, my jaws dropped. I said, yeah, these guys have no media PR team who looks at these things, who looks at optics, nothing. They just say whatever it feels like. And it's terrible,
I,
actually. So,
I think there's a need to change. Uh, the world dynamics must change, and there has to be an era of peace, and wars have to end. Destruction has to end, and people have to be, nurtured. Human lives have to be nurtured.
true.
Yeah.
Ashok Sahib says, sir, how is Russia going to react to the alliance of willing, like Poland, Estonia? There was news that there's going to be a rocket strike on Moscow from Estonia. Is it true?
Yes, what you're saying is a matter of concern, but how this alliance builds up, this is a second tier or line of thought which is happening, and this kind of a thing would take place perhaps if and when these countries feel threatened, not on their own. If their interests are threatened, if Russia is at their borders, maybe then we will talk about it. But today, I'm afraid such things will not happen. No country will allow such a thing to happen. A strike taking up from its own soil. Uh, they don't do that. This doesn't happen. Nation states do not fight like this.
Yeah.
This alliance may take place. Alliance will be it's the second line of I would say, after Ukraine is totally finished and the Russians are at the borders, and obviously they now feel threatened, in this alliance will build up. Not happening.
So, is the main goal only to cut off cheap electricity generated by the nuclear power plant?
No, that's not the point.
They've been cut off for a long time.
Yeah, that's been cut off as a, I think, not for any reason, but to ensure, I think, uh, safety is the part of it. And these are not, they have to be shut down and they have to be kept secure. And that is, I think, more of a concern rather than electricity part of it. There's nothing to do
So,
with that. It's in safety aspect.
Global Office 2.0. General sir, how do you think the war is going to end? I think you've spoken about that. There are reports that the Americans are holding secret talks with the Russians. If true, then Russia emerges a winner and Europe from now on lives in fear.
Yes, I also have read about it, and yes, there are some. I did read about talks between the Russians and the Americans, uh, but the Russians are not going to get fooled. You see, they're not today. That trust aspect, the trust factor is gone.
Hmm.
Russia, as I have said during the talk, during our discussion, will only stop after achieving its minimum strategic aims. It's It may talk, it may do anything, but till such time they have not made their gains and they have not come to what they have now aimed to do, they will not stop and they will not listen to the Americans. And while they will talk, you know, backdoor, what's it called? Oh, okay, I forget the term. So the talks take place between two fighting nations also, incidentally,
Yeah, yeah. Back
right?
channel.
Back channel. There's another talk, another term for it. Anyway, so this back channel which keeps working, because in every country there are peaceniks, people who are looking at peace, right?
Aman ki Asha, if I may.
So they're the ones who public to public engagements take place to
Yeah.
bring about some sanity into the whole thing. So that kind of a thing, I'm sure, is taking place. How will it end? We've discussed this. How can it end? We've discussed this. But Russia will end it, or will agree to end it only on its own terms. That's my take on this. Yeah.
A lighter, this thing. ना इमरान खान का अरेस्ट होता ना प्रिगोजिन कू करता ना जी जिनपिंग का हाउस अरेस्ट होता दिस अर्थ इज कॉल्ड पृथ्वी इज बोरिंग दीज डेज फॉर डिफेंस न्यूज जनरल सर ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਬੜਾ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਕਰਾਓ
The big event is happening. Big event is actually taking place. We all do not realize that this particular war is going to be a major, major event uh,
It's going to
playing
change the
out.
world. Mm.
It's a total change in the geostrategic and the geopolitical, arena. The alignment of nations, the uh, the importance of the global south, the unity amongst the global south,
Yeah,
the African Union coming out stronger, the Quad getting stronger, the SCO getting stronger, the BRICS getting stronger, the alignments are changing. So this is the biggest event which is taking place, my friend. Now you want a nuclear strike? I'm so sorry, I cannot engineer that. But but definitely, uh,
yeah.
this is a major major event actually in play. And as the Ukrainian president has said, that every inch of territory is being paid for by in blood. So it cannot be. It's not a small event.
So,
Whether it's the blood of the Russians or the Ukrainians, it's blood.
do you think reports of Western weapons given to Ukraine be used in French riots? Does this sound
Yes, sir.
reasonable?
Absolutely agree. This was our fear even within 1 week of the war starting.
Yeah,
This was a major fear which was taking place when so much of weapons. And in fact, in one of the talks, not on this particular channel, somewhere, uh, we were discussing this particular issue. What happened when the Americans left Afghanistan?
Ukraine is the answer. Hmm.
Yeah, so you're looking at Ukrainistan, you're looking at the weapons just getting siphoned away, and very true statement. And it's it's actually a very alarming situation in Europe, which we do not realize.
So, US is achieving two goals at once. This, I'm sure, is going to be one of your favorite questions. So, destroying the EU economic military might and destroying the military exports of Russia while increasing its own economy and military exports. What are your thoughts?
Oh, Rishi Kiran, this is what I've been talking about all this while.
What they seek है, sir?
This entire game is just this what you have just said, and I'm thankful to you for having put across this. This is the essence of the entire Ukraine war. Did not want US did not want EU to become strong. It did not want it to become economically strong. It did not want it to become militarily strong. It did not want NATO to be kicked out. And your second part, destroying the military exports of Russia. Absolutely, Russia is now, uh, you know, has got nothing to export. I mean, it's more worried about its own stocks. So the export naturally is stopped. So and who's benefiting is the United States. So the whole thing is engineered based on this particular premise.
And I'll add what Bhattaji is saying. Very profound statement, sir. Is there any strong leader left in the West? I doubt they are just playing the game with no aim to win and don't want to lose either.
Very true. No
Very,
leader.
very profound statement.
Where's the leader? Biden, sorry. Macron, sorry. Uh, the German Olaf Scholz, sorry. Maybe to an extent, right? Who else? Poland, sorry. Hungary, very strong. These are the kind of leaders who are coming up. Hungary
Yeah.
is coming up very strong. So people are coming out in their own way, and they're just playing the game as you said it. So who's steering this is what you got to be seeing. This entire war, in any case, was not being steered by these gentlemen. It was being steered by the military-industrial complex,
Mm.
as has all the wars been in the past, whether it was Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya. So it is the military-industrial complex which, and we're just limiting ourselves to the Middle East and stuff, right? Or to or to Europe. Let's talk Africa. All the wars or all the peacekeeping missions in Africa are an absolute result of a game being played by these countries.
Yep.
So today there's no aim to win. They can't win. They can't aim to win, unfortunately.
And if I
And
may
as you
add, sir,
said, they don't want to lose either. So
yeah,
this is going to drag on another 2 years, 3 years.
if I may add, sir, the Russians look at Africa and say, "This is what would happen to us if we don't fight."
Yeah,
And I've heard this from Russians' mouths. I mean,
yeah.
they
That's
say this. You see the rape of Africa, and they actually use those words. And they
correct.
say that
And
if we don't fight today, this is exactly what will happen to us.
Absolutely right. And today, fortunately, the African Union, the formation of the African Union way back 2000 something, initial 2001 or so, I was, in fact, kind of monitoring this when I was there in New York. We used to monitor. I was in the Situation Center. We used to monitor on a daily basis what was happening, and I was looking out of the African desk. So the formation of the African Union was a very interesting thing at that particular time,
Mhm.
and so all these people have now matured and are awakening to the idea. The global South is awakening to the idea that look, we got to protect ourselves, otherwise we'll get, uh, you know, we're going to be in trouble. And together, if we are together, we can be very strong. That's how it is. And actually, everybody is watching the fun. Let me just tell you, how this battle is playing out in Europe and where the Europeans are getting killed. Uh, I I think the rest of the world, the 70% of the world, doesn't want to be involved at all, and is generally watching the fun. If I may just put it, the country is going down, economy is going down, um, people getting killed, riots taking place. So all the gyan that these people were giving, all the talk, all the talk about democracy and all the talk of economic power and all that stuff, I think karma has come to bite them. You know where?
So, sir, I just have a Reuters update, and I'd like to just take this moment to read it out. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, and this is no Russian propaganda, this is Reuters, who last month brokered a deal to end an armed mutiny in Russia, said that Russian mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin was no longer in Belarus.
Yeah, he said that. I've seen that. And
Sir,
if you read it, yeah, yeah,
Reuters.
yeah. And if you go further, he talks of Saint Petersburg.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, I told you, uh, I'd already told you guys that he's not there. He's in Saint Petersburg.
amazing,
He's
man.
now interesting. Anyway,
It
yeah.
is amazing. I mean, this is going to be a spin of a lifetime, I must say. There's somebody's going to should make a movie about this. Dear
I I'm
Hollywood.
I'm telling you, people listening to us. I mean, they moved ready soldiers there. They moved troops there, rightly so, and I still feel rightly so. And big deep trouble actually. But if you put up a map for the understanding of our viewers next time, please we'll do that. You just plot Saint Petersburg and you plot Kiev and you measure the distance between the two, and then from there you take to
Belarus.
Minsk,
Hmm.
Belarus, and we will draw that line and see how. Uh, if you can get hold of the power center, you've got the country.
You got the country. Yeah, yeah.
So the whole game is that I get hold of Kiev and thank you very much.
Sir, couple of compliments coming your way. Thank you for the wonderful talk. What is the end game of for the Russian inside in the war? Knowing well, the objective is to weaken Russia and down in terms of human resource and financial bleed.
Good. NATO's objective very well defined. We can, in terms of Russia, in terms of human resource and economically. As far as the Russians are concerned, Russia has been preparing for this for the last God knows how many decades. Always bear that in mind. This particular war is not going to bleed them to the extent that we think that they can be bled. All the sanctions did not work on them. On the contrary, the economy grew. So, all those who thought that by all the sanctions and by this war, Russia would be weakened, it hasn't happened. Definitely, a large amount of lives have been lost, Russian lives have been lost, a large amount of military equipment was destroyed in the initial phase. But financially, I'm so sorry. I'm afraid it hasn't been bled to the degree that they thought that they would do so. So
Yeah.
the overall aim today still remains is to keep the war on and keep pushing Russia and slowly try to bleed Russia. Unfortunately, in this bargain, the West is getting bled, and their tolerance limit of the people who are directly not actually involved. You taking out money from my pocket and giving it to somebody else. You take out money from my pocket, give it to somebody else, and I don't have food to eat. How can that happen? So there is already an unrest in Europe. Europe is bleeding. Europe is in dire straits, and God knows how much of money are they going to pump in. You see, Germany and Hungary have already said, "Sorry, no money coming in from us anymore till you show us progress." So when you do the comparison part of it, I'm afraid Russia has not been bled to the degree that they had hoped to do. And as far as Russia's end game, Russia aims to divide Ukraine on its own terms, and that is up to the river line. Coming up to the river line, right north south, and Black Sea. That's it. Not today, not easy to attain.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm going to put it in because they're right now fighting a defensive battle. They are not on the offensive. The Russians today are in the defensives. They are fighting a defensive battle. The moment the Ukrainians have been resources have been depleted beyond a certain threshold, Russians will get onto the offensive mode,
Which
and that will be a very very quick one, faster than I and you can imagine.
shock and awe.
Whatever will happen will be quick and swift and decisive. Before
Too
that,
small. Sorry.
yeah, yeah, the Ukrainians would have been finished. You know, wars are wars. You got to look out you got to play it in your mind.
Yeah. I think that's one thing which is not happening, sir. I must say, it's just not happening. This is
Yeah,
interesting. I think it's a joke, but he says Prigozhin has the chance of becoming the president of Ukraine.
yeah, I'm sure he's hoping like hell. And today, I don't remember. There's another figure which is cropping up, and another politician they keep talking about. Oh, there's a figure. There's a person who's been just propagated, and progression is. I'm afraid it's a good statement to make, but won't happen.
Mhm.
Won't happen. They're talking of somebody else. In fact, I should have noted down the name
Poroshenko.
somewhere. No, no, no. It's some guy unheard of.
Acha,
N-
okay.
Not heard of. There was this guy's profile had come about.
Okay, I haven't seen this, sir. I haven't
Yeah,
seen this.
I'll talk about it. I'll dig it out.
So, and General Ryan says very insightful.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy you're listening, my boss. It's been a pleasure to have served under you so many times. He's my Guruji, incidentally.
Likewise, sir. Sir, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Actually, this talk is, I think we've covered more ground in this talk rather than particular topic. And I'm sure the audience will also feel that way, that this has been a more of an overall analysis where we've looked at a little bit of a different aspect of the war. I think a human aspect of the war, which we've not done for a long time. For a couple of weeks, we've not got into that human aspect of the war. So I think it was important that we took this time to cover that particular aspect. Guys, all of you, thank you so much. Some wonderful comments that I have not been able to take, but that's always the case. There are 30s and 40s and 50s of comments, loads and loads of them. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining in on the spot on Thursday. And to General Prabdeep, thank you, sir, for keeping a track of this war and helping us understand what's happening around. See
Thank
you
you,
next
Adi.
week, sir.
Thank you, Adi. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be on the show and talk about Ukraine, something which is going to change the face of geopolitics for the coming decades. So, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
thank you, viewers. Bye bye. Take care. Good night.
Bye bye.